Hi, everyone. I'm really excited today because we have Hitomi Yasuda on our webinar. She will talk about the secrets and journey of purchasing an apartment building. She's going to go through the foundation and checkpoints to be able to give us an insight on how it looks like to pick a right apartment, the right business, and buying an apartment. What are the high probability of success and what goes on with that? So I'm really excited that Hitomi is here with us. But before we do that, let's introduce Hitomi. She has 25 years of international sales as well as product management and merchandise planning. She's been in multi-family business purchasing apartments for 5.5 years and has been working with several partnerships where she underwritten 1,500 multifamily, self-storage, and commercial office building. She is also very known for being conservative in her underwriting and always putting the investors first and making sure their money are well protected. She also cares a lot about the residents and their community. And one thing that I really love about Hitomi is that she prioritized building strong relationship around the network, such as her investors, brokers, lenders, property managers, and insurance agent, and so many more. What that tells us is that when she prioritized this great relationship, she knows who to talk to and who to work with when you have this apartment and deal that is on hand. So please welcome Hitomi. I'm really excited that you're here with us today.
Well, thank you, Mary, for that amazing introduction. And I'm very excited to be here as well.
Thank you so much, Hitomi. We as investors of apartment building and you as a general partner or active investors on this type of business, what does it look like? What is the overarching goal of purchasing apartment?
Right. So definitely have some certain steps or secrets, as I like to call it, right, as it pertains to our business decisions. So the number one thing, I get the slide to work. The number one thing about this whole concept is we're buying a business and that our number one goal is that we never lose money, especially our investors' money. So I call that secret number one. And that kind of ties also into our second secret, which is repeat secret number one. We never want to lose any money. And the key to that is conservative underwriting.
So with that, Hitomi, when you're looking for property, let's talk about property. How do you do that? How do you find what is the right property? What is your selection process or criteria? And how do you decide an apartment or what apartment to buy?
So great question. And that goes to our secret number three is we have a sort of a criteria of what it is that we're trying to buy. So things like, the age of the asset, the number of units, minimum occupancy, et cetera. And we choose these things that are really going to lead us to having the high probability of success and lowering risk and how that impacts our investor returns.
So tell us more, Hitomi, about, what is it important about knowing what to buy in terms of property?
So it helps, again, mitigate risk, right? Because then it gives us a situation where it's going to allow us to create a business plan that has a highest chance of success, highest probability of success. And that's by narrowing down our criteria of what it is that we want to buy. But also it goes on to secret number four too, in terms of choosing a market and where this particular asset is going to be.
And is that through understanding the customer base and what goes on in terms of market research? Why is it important for us to go through this type of study?
So once as a team, we've sort of determined the type of property that we're looking for, it's really important for us to understand the market and what's going on with the population, et cetera, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our renter pool, our customer base is going to be able to easily afford our property in terms of the rents that we're proposing. So therefore, understanding, right, what the factors that are going to impact our customer base, ability to pay rent is super important. So we look at things like the population of a particular market and how much that population is growing. Mm-hmm. We're looking at the economy, like the job situation, employers, all of the things that are going to ultimately impact our potential customer base and their ability to pay rent for us. although this mitigates risk and again protects our ability to execute our business plan. Because what we don't want to do is get into a situation where we find an apartment, but then we do research on median income, for example, and it turns out that majority of the people in that area cannot afford the rents that we're proposing, or there's, like a high poverty level statistic in the area where, again, the residents are going to struggle to pay the rents that we're proposing, right?
Yeah.
All of this is going to increase risk. And so these are the kinds of things that we want to be very aware of when we're making our business decisions.
So once you have, market, and once you know what location to look at, let's talk about understanding why the seller wants to sell the property. Why is it that it's important to understand the seller story, and, what are the things that you look for, kind of like a problem that could potentially be an opportunity for apartment buyers?
Great. So I like to affectionately call this as secret number 5, is to really understanding, the owner and what their story is, because from that, it provides some context as to the asset and what we're going to be inheriting, all the problems and the challenges, but then being able to evaluate how much of those problems and challenges are things that we can actually fix as new owners and turn it around into an opportunity for us. So really understanding what's happening, the story, things like that, it helps us come up with a strong business plan.
Can you tell us a story about, when you're purchasing an apartment, you found some interesting facts about why the seller is selling the property?
Sure. So, for example, a property that we recently closed on, we found out that it is 100 units and it's in a good market. So those things kind of checked our boxes, but it was 1973. So a little bit older vintage than what we normally go for. We usually like to stick with like mid 1980s and younger. However, once we understood the story behind it, we were able to kind of make an exception, because in this instance, we found out it's a husband and wife couple. They've owned it for like over 10 years. And they really took care of the property as if it was their own. They spent several millions of dollars investing into the property by putting on brand new pitched roofs. They really fixed up the curb appeal, right? The landscaping. They painted the exterior of all the buildings, these nice, vibrant colors. And then they spent a lot of money too in actually rebranding the apartment complex, giving it a new name. And so there was a lot of positives, right? They were the opposite of a slumlord. They really, really took care of the property. So despite the fact that the property was in, 1970s vintage, we decided that, this was actually going to be okay, and we're willing to entertain this. Now, with that said, there are also some challenges that we discovered. With it being husband and wife couple, they were actually self-managing all 100 units. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of inefficiencies that we discovered in terms of certain expense categories being much, much higher than they needed to be. We didn't really have any like policies and procedures in place. So they were just running things very ineffectively. So we knew right away that, wow, if we hired a very strong third-party management company, they'd be able to help us implement a good accounting system and better policies and procedures so that we'd be able to run the business way more effectively, efficiently, and get some of those expenses down. The other thing that we found out too was, again, with it being self-managed, they became very emotionally attached to the property. So they became friendly, or almost too friendly, with some of the residents, and therefore they never raised the rents to where they could be or where they should be. So that was another opportunity for us to go in there and change that situation, right? Bring these rents up to where they needed to be, because quite a few of the units, actually, their rents were well below market. So again, another opportunity for us as new owners to go in and correct these issues. So it really became a property that we became very, very interested in seeing the possibilities of what we can do with it.
So it's really just trying to understand what the problem that this current apartment or this current owners are going through, and understanding how we can provide that solution once we start to take over that property. So it gives you insight ahead of time to figure out what we have to deal with once that property has been purchased. So we've gone through, looking at the markets, looking, the story of the seller, understanding the property. What goes on after that in terms of, other things that are important or checkpoints that are important in order for us to have that high probability of success when purchasing an apartment?
Great question. So that takes us into secret number 6, which is now coming up with a business plan, right? Mm-hmm. Underwriting conservatively. So now that, we've checked all the boxes that the property, attributes matches our criteria, mm-hmm. and we check the market area, right? Understanding what's going on with the population, the job growth, and who our potential customer resident base is going to be, and can they actually afford to live at our apartments? Mm-hmm. We then got the background story about what's happening with the property in terms of the current ownership, some of their challenges, and how that can actually be an opportunity for us. Now, from that, we have a good vision of what we want to do with the property in terms of coming up with a business plan. And mm-hmm. we underwrite conservatively. To what that means is set up certain goals, right? As it pertains to, say, rent increases, mm-hmm. capital expenditure budgets, these targets for us that gives us a high probability of success as we're coming up with a business plan. Because what we don't want to do, right, is create a plan that's so aggressive that everything over the next 5, 7, 10 years has to go perfect for us to be successful. Very dangerous. Mm-hmm. So we come up with an underwriting plan that allows us a high probability of success. And there's, certain checkpoints that we do that when we're coming up with the plan.
Awesome. And can you explain us more what goes on when you underwrite a property, and how do we say that this is a conservative underwriting?
So part of that is we form a very strong team. Okay. And, we surround ourselves with very, very expert people that can actually help validate some of our assumptions. Okay. Mm-hmm. So starting with like the key sponsor. A sponsor is someone who not only has the net worth and liquidity, but is someone that has many, many years of experience and has gone what we call full cycle, mm-hmm. purchased the property, ran the business, and eventually sold the property. And mm-hmm. they've done that multiple times. So they have a nice handle on the actual process. Okay. Mm-hmm. And on top of the sponsor's experience level, right, we also then leverage industry professionals, people like the lender, the insurance, and of course, property manager to mm-hmm. sniff check our assumptions as it pertains to the loan, the insurance, and then the property manager in terms of being able to execute on the business plan, right? Where mm-hmm. we're proposing to raise rents. What does, market vacancy look like down the road, right? Organic rent growth, is this all achievable? Mm-hmm. So these different industry pros help us validate our various assumptions to make sure that we have a high probability of success, being able to hit these milestone targets mm-hmm. under our ownership over the next 3-5 years that we plan to hold the business.
Awesome. And I guess, this is something that I really love is, with purchasing an apartment, it's like what you said in here, it is a team activity because you have multiple experts in a different areas that would guide you and, knows exactly what to look for, such as, property manager, lender. Like once you have the right team in place, then you know that you have all aspects of different angles of advice that you'll get across the whole lifespan of not just acquiring the property, but also going through the business plan. So you've gone through a length of trying to find the right property, trying to find the right market. Let's say you have the apartment and you're ready to acquire this apartment and it looks like this apartment is the right acquisition. Once you have all of that, what goes on, Hitomi? What does that journey look like?
So the next step is we submit an offer and then we've been accepted, right? Mm-hmm. We've negotiated with the seller broker and they've chosen us. So mm-hmm. now we're so excited, right? But there's still a very important next step, and that is the topic of today's podcast, due diligence. So now that we've submitted our offer and it's been accepted, before we actually purchase the property, we go through what we call due diligence, which is both financial due diligence mm-hmm. and physical due diligence. This is basically our last chance to check if all of our assumptions that we made on a financial basis and also the physical condition of the property are true, that it's verifying our assumptions to make sure that we're getting ourselves into a business that's going to lead to a high probability of success. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that we would do, right, is checking the financials. And if that works, then we move on to physical due diligence, which would be traveling to the actual property and making sure that the condition of the property is what we were assuming, what we were presented when we came up with this business plan. So it's basically verifying everything that we've done so far, that this property is what we think it is, both financially and in physical condition, before we continue all the way to the finish line.
Tell us a story where you founded a property, you think that it's the right property, but for some reason, during due diligence, you have to just say, this is the end of this. We're not moving forward with the apartment, purchasing the apartment.
Sure. So I definitely have some real life seminars, as I like to call it. The one that comes to mind, so there was a property where it's mid 1980s and it was just around 100 units or so, okay, in the middle of the country. And financially, when we started checking what the seller is claiming on the P&L, the T12, right? They're claiming $1 million worth of rents being collected. So that's kind of how we underwrote the financial assumptions in terms of what we could rely on for income. But when we actually started checking the bank statements, we only saw $800 worth of bank deposits. Mm-hmm. So there was a $150 shortage in terms of the income claimed against this property. So that's a big problem, because that means that we now can no longer count on that $1 million of rent coming in, because somehow there's some sort of disconnect going on. Okay. Mm-hmm. So already there was a red flag there. And what that allowed us to do was what we call retrade, where we renegotiated the price, saying, you know what, this is what your income is showing. Based on this, we want a price reduction. And mm-hmm. so the seller agreed to it, and we did get the price reduced. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, at this point, normally I think that's enough of a red flag that probably should have walked away from the deal. But in this instance, because this deal had been going on for like 4 months, mm-hmm. We made an executive decision amongst the team to let's just fly out there and just do the one last check, physical due diligence, just to kind of just get it over with, because we've already spent so much time invested, right, in this thing. So we flew out there. And then what happened was, when we actually met the property management company and we divided into teams, some of the things that you do during due diligence for physical is you actually walk every single unit, okay? Mm-hmm. Because you're looking to see the condition of the units. You're looking for things like a hoarding situation or excessive number of pets, mm-hmm. or mold and damage and evidence of a potential roof leak, right? Where if you see like wet spots on the ceiling, mm-hmm. Just actual damages to the unit themselves, where the carpet is all trashed or the flooring or the kitchen cabinets are damaged. I mean, you're just looking to see the condition of what it is that you're going to be inheriting when you mm-hmm. actually buy the property. Mm-hmm. So when we did that, what we discovered was we have a rent roll, and the rent roll is stating occupancy around 90%. Okay. And that's, again, the basis upon which we built our business plan. After we actually walked all the units, however, we've discovered that 6 of the units have skipped. Mm. And what skipped means is that at some point in the middle of the night, in the last week or so, the tenants just moved out without telling anybody, just left. Wow. And then the leasing manager was not even aware of that. Mm. So what that means is that the occupancy was actually a lot lower than what was represented to us. Mm-hmm. So that was risk, right? There was actually a lot less people living there. Mm-hmm. But also that kind of alerted us that there's a staffing issue, meaning the leasing manager was not on top of this information that they should have been. Mm-hmm. So it raised a couple of red flags, right? Like, okay, is this leasing manager the right fit? But mm-hmm. second of all, this occupancy is a lot, lower now. How are we going to be able to lease these vacant units up?
Yeah.
How much, cushion have we built into the business plan? Okay. Mm-hmm. So that all led to some concerns, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, was we also hired an engineer to actually come out and take a look at big liability issues, potential liability issues. So not minor things like, ugly doorknob or ugly light fixtures, things like that, not cosmetic things. We're talking liability things that could lead to the condition of the property, but also like like physical danger, like a tenant could get injured because like the stair railing is about to fall down or something like that. So part of it is like the physical condition of the property, but also liability. So injury or condition, right? And what we discovered was there was about just over 300,000 worth of issues as it pertained to like some roof stuff, some underground sewer issues, and then some safety issues, with railings and stuff. So right there, combination of the occupancy being off and then this extra money budget that we didn't account for. In the end, cut long story short, we terminated this purchase and sale agreement. Super disappointing. However, we did this with fiduciary responsibility to our investors in mind, right? We did not want to get into a bad situation and get into a deal where we have so many headaches, we have so many unknowns, and the likelihood of success, the likelihood of being able to execute and turn all these problems around just started to become, very precarious. We just thought, you know what, the way we underwrote it, this is never going to be able to materialize into a successful business venture. So we decided to terminate.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot more properties out there that it's not a good deal compared to the right deal. And even if you find the right deal, because of all the process that we have to go through, such as checking the property, checking the financial, physical due diligence, that potential property may still not span out because of all the findings that we will find, right? So I guess, it's really just making sure that before we get in on purchasing an apartment, just like what you said, we have the highest probability of making this a successful. Because once you get in, you go through that business plan, and then that you can also exit and make sure that we can bring the investors' money back and allow that to make money for each and everybody. So thank you for that story, Hitomi. So what goes on in like physical due diligence? What are the things that you usually find during that time?
So I have some fun pictures I can share of some real life issues that we saw during due diligence on a variety of different properties. I'd like to share that right now.
Okay. Yes, please.
So here's one where we actually saw some major mold issues in the ceiling, as you can see here. So that immediately was a red flag that it means that there's some roof problems, right? There's some leakages going on. And the fact that the residents are having to live like this also kind of indicates that, this owner just really does not take care of the property, right? Here's a picture of a roof where, right, some of the shingles are all deteriorating and stuff like that. Now, if it's a small little section, could be a couple $1,000 to like patch it up and replace. But if the damage is extensive, it could be $500,000, right? It could actually kill the deal. So this is something that we were very concerned about. Look at this craziness. So here's the front door to the resident, and there's like this kind of roof area right outside the front door that's being held up by a couple of 2x4s. It's about to collapse. Like, how ridiculous is this? Red flag. Same thing. Right? All of these properties, B, C class assets, right? They're going to be on the older side. So there is going to be some maintenance issues, wear and tear, right? But some of this could lead to safety issues. So again, depending how extensive this is, right? This is on the stairs. If it's like in just one section, okay, we can fix it for several thousands of dollars. But if it's extensive, it could be like, way more than just $2,000 or $3,000. It could be like $50,000, right? So something to be very aware of. Little hole in the fence, right? Couple $100, but if it's extensive, it could be a couple thousands of dollars. Concrete erosion, same sort of thing. Depending on how extensive it is around the property, it can become a major, major capital expense. Water heaters. Look at these. We saw these that have burn marks on it, right? In one instance, the property, we were told that around 50% of the water heaters had already been replaced. But that meant that for us, there was still another 50% that could start, needing replacement under our ownership. So you just want to make sure you have enough money to address that.
Yeah. And I guess, oh, yes, please go ahead.
Like sewer system, right? Something like this could lead to flooding the property. So just extra costs to be aware of when you're actually checking the property. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you want to protect the asset, right? So you want to protect the asset, but you also want to look for things that protect the residents that is not going to lead to injury.
Yeah.
Things like that, liability issues.
So you've gone through all the steps from, understanding the property that you want to purchase, understand the tenants and the market, knowing what problems and solutions that needs in. You've gone through that. You've gone through physical diligence, and you've gone through all and everything check. What's next after that?
So the next thing is you want to have fun, right? Why do we do all this? We do all this checking is so that we have a high probability of finding a deal that is going to lead to success, right? And the purpose of getting into multifamily investing in the first place for many of us, right, is to create legacy wealth, to create time and financial freedom, right? And I know for me, that was very important, right? I was just facing corporate burnout in the rat race. I just needed to find a vehicle that was going to create my ability to, like I said, create long-term wealth. And in that process, the powerful thing about multifamily is that not only, we, the managers, as well as our investors, can make some decent returns on our investment. But through the power of multifamily, you can actually give back and do good for the community as well. Because I'm always thinking about our residents, that we're going in and we're offering safe, clean, and affordable housing for our residents. So it's a win-win for everybody concerned, right? And you just meet some amazing people along the way because it is a team sport. You're not doing this by yourself. You're constantly surrounded by people way, way smarter. And it's just an amazing journey where everybody wins.
I totally agree with that, Hitomi. There's a lot of work that goes behind purchasing an apartment. Even before the apartment comes into acquisition, there's a lot of work that goes behind it. And it's really the team that makes a big difference. And just like what you said, it's about part of that is also making a difference into our tenants' lives and making difference into the community that we're serving. And I know you also have, a current deal that you're working on. So Hitomi, tell us more about the current project that you're currently working on.
Right. So we're really excited. Right now, we're under escrow on a project that's really fabulous. Not only does it combine the power of multifamily, where we're able to provide clean, safe, and affordable housing to the community, but at the same time, this particular project has a huge humanitarian aspect to it, where we are able to help the homeless community, people coming out of rehab, the prison system, et cetera, and giving this community a second chance at life and rebuilding their lives and getting a fresh start. It's 233 units and it's located in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it's open to both accredited investors as well as a special crowdfunding platform where people can get involved in their first deal for as little as $5,000. If people would like to learn more, our goal is to close by the beginning of December of 2023. So if people would like to learn more, I'm happy to actually set up a call, talk to them about it, and explain a little bit more about the amazing opportunity.
That is awesome. I know, Hitomi, I totally believe in the projects that you currently is working on, and the team that you have in there are phenomenal, including you, because I know how diligent you are in terms of like creating or going through the underwriting as well as due diligence. So I have a high confidence that this type of deal is something that is really a true win for everybody. And I really want to thank you for your time, Hitomi. I really appreciate all the insights and valuable informations that you have given to us. Thank you so much, Hitomi.
Thank you for having me.